What I worry about and don't like is the way in which the ideology of multiculturalism has declined into cultural relativism. I think that's very dangerous. When the Archbishop of Canterbury, for God's sake, says that you can't have one law for everybody, that is stupid. Salman Rushdie. I'm better at this than I look.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where nothing says lovin' like a wild boar in the oven. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks so much for joining us. Coming up on the Worst People in the Whole Wide World Weekly Update, a female Democrat for governor turns her campaign into a raging dumpster fire when she is exposed as a petrified, shrinking violet. A different female Democrat candidate for governor turns her campaign into a raging dumpster fire when she is exposed as a psycho bitch from hell. A candidate for state attorney general fantasizes about murdering his enemies and their children and doesn't lose a single endorsement. I'll give you one guess what party he's a member of. But first, regrettably, we need to check in yet again with our good friends across the pond in the jolly old Islamic Caliphate of Britannistan, where last week we brought you the news that the Labour Party government of Sir Keir and the Stormtroopers has installed a brand new woke lesbian Archbishop of Canterbury. And then I went on to crack a bit of a joke about how she's going to get right to work promoting every non-Christian, non-Anglican, non-British, non-civilized thing under the sun. But even I, your crusty, hardened old cynic of a correspondent, didn't fully appreciate the extent to which I wasn't joking. Because did you see what they've done to Canterbury Cathedral this week? I mean, Homegirl was not wasting any time. It's being called, without a hint of shame or irony, an art installation. And if you want to get a sense of what kind of art this is, don't go to a portrait gallery or a sculpture garden. Put on your Kevlar vest, get strapped with your gat, go to the worst part of town, find the freeway overpass with the most junkies and vagrants living there, take a good look underneath it, and you will see the artistic tradition in question. Because, yep, that's right, we couldn't make this up if we tried. The Church of England has lovingly festooned the interior of Canterbury Cathedral with fucking graffiti. Now, the first and most obvious question is, who is this for? Well, that's difficult to say, but it damn sure ain't Christians. According to a statement from the cathedral's public relations department, and again, not making this up, it only sounds like a ridiculous, absurd parody of the way wokesters talk, but it's totally real. Quote, this project focuses on partnering with marginalized communities such as Punjabi, Black and Brown diaspora, neurodivergent, and LGBTQIA plus groups to collaboratively create handwritten literature responding to the question, what would you ask God? End quote. Handwritten literature, they call it. And I feel like the word handwritten is doing a lot of work there. And so, for that matter, is the word literature. When you have to go to Home Depot and show a valid photo ID, and then a guy unlocks a big orange cage and hands you some cans of spray paint, I feel like you're not planning on doing much handwriting or creating any type of literature, unless a picture of an exploding butthole next to the sigil of the 63rd Street Latin Kings counts as literature now, and who knows, maybe it does. Imagine yourself as a religious pilgrim of yore, traveling to Canterbury Cathedral to worship at the shrine of the martyred St. Thomas Becket, which they did right up until Henry VIII got pissed and tore the thing down because the Pope wouldn't give him a divorce. Or better yet, imagine yourself as a modern pilgrim, a true believing Anglican, if indeed there are any of those remaining outside Africa. You've been saving up for years for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pay a visit to the archdiocesan seat of the supreme head of your global church. Or maybe you're just a fan of history and old buildings, and you've dreamed your whole life of being able to see this most magnificent example of medieval classical Norman ecclesiastical architecture, the only edifice of its kind still in existence, consecrated 900 years ago, and you go inside to take as many photographs as your little SD card will hold. And what do you see all over every interior surface? Fucking graffiti. And it's even worse than all that, because this wasn't miscreant criminal vandals who broke into the place to deface everything just out of a sense of nihilism. This was done at the behest of the Church of England. It will surprise you, I suspect not at all, to learn that the Cathedral Vandalism Project is the brainchild of a fellow called Alex Vellis. Describes himself as a vegan queer poet, uses they-them pronouns, as if anybody cares. And I know what you want me to do now. You want me to read an excerpt from one of they-them's poetic works. And yes, your humble correspondent will oblige you. And I reiterate, this is a real thing, not a hilarious parody of the slam poetry scene from 21 Jump Street. This is taken from a piece called Exodus from November of 2019. Quote, "You are not enough, they say, and it sticks with you. Papier-mâché ankles that arch and tear and fold and break and break and break, and you must act strong. Everyone is counting on you. You must act strong. There is a finality in strength, a fraught knot used for hanging light fixtures or bodies we can never, never, never unwind." End quote. And I think we can all agree that English culture is in quite capable hands indeed. 200 years ago, all they had was some untalented hacks like Blake and Keats and Shelley and Wordsworth and Byron and Tennyson. Today, they've got vegan queer they-thems, spray painting slam poetry on cathedrals. National religious and cultural self-loathing is quite a thing to behold. And now we turn our gaze back to our own side of the Atlantic, to a different moral and cultural wasteland. I expect by now you have heard the story about a fellow named Jay Jones, Democrat candidate for Attorney General in Virginia. And I'm always reminded of that line that Queen Elizabeth I shot back at Sir Francis Drake when he informed her that he had named the first English colony in the New World in honor of her chastity, when she said, "Oh dear, if I should ever get married, we'll have to change the name to Conjugia." Good Queen Bess was a real firecracker, but the host digresses. Now, some text messages came to light this week, some from 2022, in which Jay Jones, then a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, is conversing with one of the Republican members of that chamber, and he casually remarks that he would love to fatally shoot the man who was then the Republican Speaker of the House, and then he would like to fatally shoot his two children, who were aged 2 and 5 at the time, I believe, so that they could die in the arms of their mother. But don't be alarmed, guys. This is not a bloodlust type of thing. Jay Jones doesn't want to murder a father and his 2 kids just for the sake of watching them die. He just wants to murder them for political expediency. Because if the House Speaker and his kids get murdered, then there would be a better chance of his bill for gun control getting passed. And what a great, fantastic snapshot of the Democrat Party's moral worldview. Just as you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs, sometimes you can't pass your pet legislation without a few of the right people getting violently killed. You know what else is a great snapshot of the Democrat Party's moral worldview? The fact that not one single elected Democrat from sea to shining sea has rescinded their endorsement of Jay Jones. That's a real thing, not a single one. Every Democrat in the United States is still proudly riding the Jay Jones murder train. And the guy hasn't even apologized, which makes it all the more amazing. I mean, sure, we get the typical mealy-mouthed non-apology apology that we always get when Democrats get caught fantasizing about the murder of their political enemies. And even in the pantheon of mealy-mouthed Democrat non-apology apologies, this one was pretty loathsome. You see, Jay Jones says you're not allowed to criticize Jay Jones because, come on, guys. We have all written text messages that we didn't mean and wish we could take back. And okay, dude, you're going with that, huh? Get best of luck. Because, yeah, obviously we have all casually remarked that we would like to shoot someone's children and watch them expire in their mother's arms so we can have a better chance at passing some legislation. I mean, who hasn't done that? Well, aside from everyone who isn't a bloodthirsty raving psychopath. But that explanation seems to be perfectly satisfactory as far as Abigail Spanberger is concerned. She is the former congresswoman who is now the Democrat nominee for governor of Virginia, who has really been crowning herself in glory for the past 4 or 5 weeks, beginning with her refusal to dismiss a high-ranking campaign staffer who openly, gleefully celebrated the killing of Charlie Kirk, which is a very outstanding look for a potential governor, I think. So there was a debate this week in which Ms. Spanberger faced off against Winston Earl Sears, her Republican opponent, and this was probably the worst debate performance I have ever seen from any candidate for any office in my whole natural-born life, which is saying a lot because I've seen Kamala Harris debate. Spanberger gets put on the spot for refusing to pull her endorsement of Jay Jones by the moderator and then by her opponent, and repeatedly, and just, you had to know this question was going to be asked, sweetheart. You had every opportunity to memorize some little monologue to say in response to it, but she flatly refused to engage with the question. She just stutters and stammers and vomits out some non-answer about, well, I'm running for the office of governor, and that's what I'm focused on right now, and blah, blah, blah. And not just her opponent, even the moderators seemed gobsmacked by her lack of preparedness here. She was confronted with the question half a dozen times. The first few times she repeats the same non-answer, but eventually she just gives up. She stands there, silent, staring straight ahead for about a good 15 or 20 seconds. It was really quite excruciating, just standing, saying nothing, looking mortified, like she's praying for the earth to swallow her up. And it's not like it was any sort of gotcha question. All she had to do was say, no, I don't approve of Republicans and their children being murdered. But she couldn't make herself say it. Why not? Because it's pretty abundantly obvious at this point, keeps getting more obvious, that Democrats really do approve of Republicans being murdered. Which brings us to Katie Porter of California, also a former congresswoman, also a candidate for governor. And her murderous rages don't seem to be confined to wanting Republicans killed. She also seems quite willing to murder news reporters and staffers who don't behave obsequiously enough for her taste. Also, here's a little known fact about Katie Porter. In the event of a natural disaster, her brassiere can be used as an improvised shelter for a family of 8, or 9 if they're Asians. Now, it's pretty commonly known in California already that Katie Porter, like most liberal white women, is a psycho bitch from hell. Her rage meter goes from 0 to 100 in the time it takes for a staffer to unwittingly wander into the camera frame when she was doing a Zoom call, but it's kind of funny for this Jekyll and Hyde thing to play out in real time because there's no middle ground. She goes straight from fake, happy, chipper, oh my God, you're going to be so super happy when you get your new electric car. It's going to be the best thing ever. Because you know how things are now. 50-year-old women think they have to talk like they are extras from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Then the staffer wanders into the background, the staffer who's wearing a COVID mask still and appears to be disinfecting a countertop because, also like most liberal white women, Katie Porter is also a hypochondriac germaphobe who thinks the China virus is a greater threat to her health than the fact that she's 5'6" and weighs 318 pounds. So she immediately transitions from I'm a happy-go-lucky, relatable teenage girl, her fake political persona, straight into get the fuck out of my fucking shot right now, you fucking stupid cunt. Which, quite obviously, is the real Katie Porter. And then she turns back to the people on the Zoom call and goes right back to, hi, guys, I'm sorry about that. Let's take it again, okay? And she had a blow-up with a Sacramento TV reporter this week that you may have seen where she just couldn't tolerate being asked follow-up questions and got so outraged she tries to end the interview. She even says in total seriousness, I'm here because I want to have a pleasant conversation. And what a great snapshot that is of the world in which California Democrats are accustomed to living, where the news media are just dutiful party transcriptionists whose role is to invite you to give your monologue and then smile and nod politely until you're finished. She was so deeply offended that this reporter would have the temerity to ask a follow-up question after she gave a feeble, fake non-answer to the original question. She was actually going to get up and walk out of the interview. In other words, the reporter tried to conduct something resembling an actual news interview, and that was a bridge too far for our girl Katie. She actually looked for a moment like she was fighting the urge to start throwing punches. I would have loved to see how she acted in the car afterward on the way to KFC to pick up a bucket of fried chicken. Who the fuck does that fucking cunt of a whore think she is asking me fucking follow-up questions? In fact, I would bet $100 that she called up the station manager and demanded the reporter be fired. What's the net result for California? Well, Katie Porter's probably ruined herself now, so in all likelihood, we will get Javier Becerra and his IQ of 47 as our next governor, so bully for us, I suppose. And with that, I am done. That's all I've got. This has been the WPWWWU for 12 October 2025. I now transmit you into the loving custody of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. In past 72 seconds, I have decided how this show is going to go, which is great because at least one of us needs to know. Now, tonight, we've got a couple of things. Of course, there's the Canterbury issue. We definitely got to discuss that. We're probably going to take on a little bit of Red Sun Superman. That's going to be freaking awesome. We've got, first AI created viruses. I brought a little bit of that because, everybody needs some doomsayer activity. And did I miss anything? What else?
I don't think you missed anything. That all sounds pretty goddamn exciting.
I'm going to love it. It's going to be great. So, without any further ado, we're going to start here.
Audience.
We're going to do this thing first because I think that this is currently one of the larger issues staring people directly in the face, and I think this is a great thing. I think this is phenomenal. I love it.
It certainly does force you to have a conversation about certain things, doesn't it?
No. But what it will do is force an awful lot of, for lack of a better term, conservative English and by extension Western people to take a good hard look at this bullshit.
And we've always known that the Church of England was a fairly liberal institution as far as Christian churches go, but we have really crossed all kinds of Rubicons here lately because it seems as if the new component that we're seeing here to the wholesale degradation and destruction of Western societies is that some of what are supposed to be the most venerable institutions in those societies are on the leading edge of the destruction. And I think here with this Canterbury Cathedral graffiti, you have a pretty magnificent example of that. Just quickly, I've shown this to about 4 or 5 people in the last couple days. Every single one of them at first sight assumed that somebody had broken into the cathedral in the middle of the night and vandalized it. And I said, oh no, the church did this. The church paid to have this done. That's where we are now.
So have any of you actually sat down and read some of this stuff? Because that's what I'm planning on doing here, is like going through the individual marginalized community art.
Yes, I did love that little quote about marginalized communities and neurodivergent Punjabi black and brown diaspora. Just all of the woke fashionable buzzwords just coming at you like a machine gun.
So here's the issue, and here's what I've been getting at the whole time. This is great. This is probably the most off-tone, off-topic, off-putting thing that could have been done to a religious community that is not just English, but has had its own diaspora, has had its own catechisms, and it, it's a major religious center. This is not a small thing.
And it's good that you brought that up, because just in the past few days, since the announcement of the new woke lesbian Archbishop of Canterbury, all of the Anglican churches in Africa have now officially broken from the Church of England. They said, I'm sorry, we just can't do this anymore. If we're gonna take your religion more seriously than you do, we are done. We are out. We're just gonna have an African Anglican church, and you go do whatever bullshit you want.
Did I use catechism wrong? I think I might.
I don't think so.
Schism, I think was what I was looking for.
But yeah, it definitely is a schism now.
It's modern. It's a modern schism, a full-blown religious break taking place between the literal birthplace of a modified Christianity that is worshipped by something on the order of 1/8 of the world's surface, as a byproduct of the British Empire having never had the sun set on it.
And so that includes, of course, Episcopalians in America who are still part of the worldwide Anglican communion. We just had to change the name of the church when we had our revolution because Americans didn't want to be Church of England members anymore. So that's more of a semantic thing than anything else.
Right. But what I'm getting at is if this had happened in 2015, I think it would fly under the radar and it probably wouldn't even made BBC News at all. If this had happened,
I think you're probably right.
2017, 2018, it would have done the same thing. 2022, and it would have raised some eyebrows, but it happening now at this point, at this juncture, is a direct overstepping of that whole globalist agenda thing that will, and I am not Anglican, will not go unanswered. This is going to create the exact line along which, or at least it's going to highlight the line along which the Western people are separating from the Western powers.
Right. And it's as I alluded to briefly in the monologue, that it's by no means is it just Christians or Anglicans more broadly who are offended by this. Really, anybody who places any value in Western civilization is offended by this. Anybody who has a respect for ancient buildings is offended by this. Anybody who likes things that look nice is offended by this. I'm sorry, handwritten literature, they actually called it handwritten literature. And my God, that might be the most offensive part of the whole thing. You're calling this literature and you're calling it handwritten. I mean, Shakespeare didn't have to go to freaking Home Depot and buy cans of spray paint to write his sonnets. I'm sorry, this is not literature. It's not handwritten. It is vandalism. Vandalism is not art. I don't care if it takes talent to do it. Does it take talent to do it? Sure, it probably does. Does it belong on the inside of a cathedral? Absolutely not. It belongs under a fucking freeway overpass.
I'll even go as far as saying, had this occurred in a New York, like a brand new New York church or a newly consecrated New York church, I wouldn't have an issue with it. If this had occurred in a brand new consecrated or a newly consecrated English,
sure. If it's the kind of new age church that has a rock band on Sunday and just wants to pander to all the fashionable liberals,
no,
that's absolutely right.
You've missed my point. That's not it. Because if this is there, you can assume the rest of that is true, right? So it wouldn't have even been an issue. You wouldn't have to have a congregation of people who supported this type of stuff for this to have happened, right? What has happened here, this is a totally different flex. This is beyond the pale blind as to what they're doing. This is going to leave a stain on the very heart of specifically English Christianity for some time to come. This is going to be a problem. This is not going to go unanswered.
And specifically the fact that it was done in the building that is the cradle of English Christianity, the center of the English Christian world, the building where St. Thomas Becket met his martyrdom, for God's sake, the church where for 350 years the pilgrims would go to pray before his shrine. And it's probably the most venerable building in all of England. And that's where they chose to do this. And you're right. There is going to be a very, very severe backlash to this. And not just from true believing Christians, but from all people who like nice things.
And I don't, but this is also a firing shot. This is the shot heard around the world to every other organized religion on the planet. This is the shot heard around the world that will tell Islam that there is no peaceful outcome. Peace is not an option. This is the shot heard around the world that will be heard in the Lutheran communities and the Southern Baptist communities. If they will do this to Canterbury, they will do it to your church as soon as they get the opportunity.
Oh, yes, because if it can be done in Canterbury Cathedral, then no place is off limits. No place anywhere is off limits.
So if no place anywhere is off limits, then it opens the doorway to the schism I'm talking about. It opens the possibility that, hey, maybe these people that are so aligned with like every part of discordance ever aren't in for your best interest. The people you have elected are not your representatives.
No.
They are not like you.
They are your self-styled overlords, and they will tell you what you like.
Right. They to they want you to live in the pod, eat the bugs, own nothing, be happy, shut up, and say what they want you to, and they will accept nothing else.
You will eat the bugs, you will own nothing, you will like the graffiti, and that's just the way it's going to be. So shut the hell up, you insolent plebe.
So to prove it, I'm going to say some things in the course of this program that I would never say if I were not either quoting an individual or reading some fucking smut off of a wall.
Oh, and I've got some more poetry from this Alex Velis fellow, if you want me to read some of that out. It was actually quite fascinating when I was doing my background this morning, when I read that this guy was the intellectual driving force to for lack of a better term, behind this whole monstrosity. And so I look him up, and he doesn't appear to be any sort of noteworthy poet with any career of which to speak. I mean, he's got an Instagram and a Facebook and a Twitter, just like every fucking buddy else does. In order to actually find some of his poetry, I had to go to a place called hellopoetry.com, where he has one poem and one follower. And that's how do you wind up on this guy? When you were looking for an art installation for the most venerable cathedral in English Christendom, how the fuck do you land on this guy? How does that happen?
Allow me to explain.
Go for it.
This is a humiliation ritual perpetrated by the globalists to tell the local Englishman that he needs to sit down, shut up, and put up that damn flag. This is literally
it has to be a queer vegan. It has to be a they them. It has to be every single thing right down the line, because otherwise it won't be a big enough slap in the face to the normal Englishman whom you mentioned, who might be still a true believing Anglican and just wants to go down to his nice looking cathedral and appreciate the history and the faith tradition.
Okay, I want to change tact here, because I don't think I'm getting across the concept that I'm pushing with here. Let's change the date. It's not 2025. It's 1555.
Ooh. So you're looking at 20 years after the dissolution of the monasteries. You're looking at just a few years after Henry VIII had Becket's shrine pulled down. So that's a period of pretty heavy schism.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but heads roll and that shit gets cleaned up in less than 24 hours. And anyone who saw it gets explained to them that they're not going to talk about it. It never happened.
Yes.
Right.
And that is the period when we have, priest holes in old country houses. People have to practice Catholicism on the down low. And if their priests get caught, they're having a date with a funeral pyre. That's how quick. Seriously people took their religion in that period.
So what I'm getting at here is the fact that I'm not sure how the Bishop of Canterbury gets selected. If you know, I would love for you to explain it. However,
it's a government job like anything else. It's just it's for all intents and purposes, it is an ecclesiastical bureaucrat. So the government that's currently in power picks the person that is going to advance that government's preferred policies. And that's exactly how you get Keir Starmer selecting a woke lesbian Archbishop of Canterbury. It's really as simple as that.
Okay, so the next prime minister in can immediately change.
Yes, and if it's Nigel Farage, I absolutely would expect that to happen on the first day.
But my point to all of this is, if this had happened 20 years ago, you'd have never known about it. If this had happened 50 years ago, there would never have been a ripple in the freaking, because none of the monarchs of the day would have permitted this type of defacement. I mean, let's be honest, that's what it
No,
is.
they wouldn't even have permitted the installation of an archbishop to whom this idea would even occur, or any idea like it.
Well, I'm just kind of going over the top of all that and saying, okay.
No, yeah, but
so
your point is correct, is what I'm saying.
They choose a person, that person decides to do something like this, and you never find out about it because the very first priest that walks in and sees it picks up their phone, calls somebody over there, somebody else shows up, and there's a new Archbishop of Canterbury before the sun fucking crests the horizon. Like,
yes, exactly. If you do something this heretical to the building that's the 900-year-old cradle of English Christianity, absolutely. Not only do you get removed from your post, you're probably in prison the next time the sun comes up, if we're being honest.
So here's the point, the issue, the crux of all of it. They didn't, this would be fine in virtually any other setting. It wouldn't have even been a blip on my radar. I'm not a terribly religious individual, and I wouldn't have cared the least. But when I saw this, I grinned and I laughed and I said, "Oh, that is going to open a lot of eyes." The enemies, these. Let's be honest, globalists. The globalists have been trying to do stuff like this, trying to rouse a bit of a response out of the common man, trying to get them to instigate on. I think the governments have been trying to push civil wars in every major Western country with the intent of, specifically in America, of taking out our Constitution, or at least putting one of theirs in a position of power to be able to abbreviate the First, Second, Fifth Amendment. Fourth
Absolutely.
Amendment.
And a part of that effort, I would submit, is like I mentioned before, taking what are supposed to be the most venerable, most conservative institutions that are supposed to be most concerned with preserving your history and your culture and your national identity, and turning them into the leading edge of the cultural annihilation that they seek to achieve.
Okay, this happens in Buckingham Palace. It makes the news. Some people get upset. No major change takes place. You do this in the House of Parliament. It makes the news. Some people get upset. No major change takes place. The difference here is they're messing with religion.
Yep.
And these people are already slightly insane. They're zealots.
Just slightly.
True believers in something that they themselves cannot prove. And you need to realize that before you go slapping a whole bunch of this on one of their most venerable buildings in the history of the religion.
Yeah, and not only one of the most venerable buildings in England, or even in the English church, but one of the most important buildings in Europe, for that matter. That's how important this building is. This building is more important than Westminster Abbey. It's a hell of a lot more important than the Houses of Parliament. It's more important than Buckingham Palace, because it's older and more shit has happened there, and it is a much more significant cultural nexus than arguably even St. Paul's Cathedral. It's more important than that, just by virtue of its age and all of the momentous events of English history that have taken place within its walls.
And I think that's the reason it's there.
Yes.
All of the momentous events that have taken place within its wall, this is intended to be one of those momentous events that launches us into the future of a happy communist utopia of world domination, right?
Yep.
I don't think that's what they're going to get.
I don't either.
I do not think that Mr. Muhammad over there is going to look at this and think, "Oh, well, surely they'll never do it to my mosque." The Abrahamic Jew over here is not going to see this and go, "Well, surely they won't do this to our synagogue." Right?
Right.
There is no place, literally no place sacred.
And that's the message. That's the message being sent here. No matter what building you like, or how much you like it, or why you like it, we are coming for it, and we will fucking festoon it with our graffiti. Just watch us do it.
Some of the
Because
stuff
we
I
can.
can't read. I can't even read, like this stuff on the
Yeah,
left here,
I tried to read some of it, and I had a hard time too.
and it
I mean,
says,
I'm not much of a graffiti connoisseur, I guess.
you know, why did you create? I can't read it.
Let me
Is
read the
illness sin?
let me read the excerpt from the article again. It says
We got another angle in a second.
the project focuses on partnering with marginalized communities such as Punjabi, Black and Brown diaspora, neurodivergent, and LGBTQIA plus groups to collaboratively create handwritten literature responding to the question, "What would you ask God?" So it's graffiti vandals asking questions of God. Ultimately, I guess is the point of the exercise that this vegan queer they them slam poet dreamed up.
So I can't even read this. It's perfectly clear. I'm looking straight at it. Are you the pig?
I all I can read is the word "you."
Am I nuts? I mean, chat. Come on, help me out with this one.
Yeah, are
What
you the
is?
pig? Is just, let me see if I can find some translations of this graffiti.
Maybe it is in another language. That would make sense. And then there's, if you made us all in your own form, not image, form. I'm not even sure. Not why the violence and killing, Storm. If you made us all in your own form, why the violence and killing, Storm? How is my dog's bark danger? I'm almost positive that is a backwards R. Or maybe
I found a page from the cathedral itself that has some more detailed photographs. I'm gonna drop this in the bin here.
right. I yet again, I can't really. Are you the pie too? The pie? Are you the pie? Are you the pig?
I think it's "Are you there?"
Are you there? Okay. All right. All right. All right. If that's what there looks like, then this, or was it? Are you there? Bonus. Nope. Nope. That doesn't help anything. Did you drop some?
Yeah.
Where's it at? Okay. I got to remove that.
You want me to put it up? Here,
We can bring that up.
let me go full screen.
You got to drop the thing. I don't have it.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing it. I'm just trying to full screen it.
Yeah, no, I think Mike 23 is right. I think this is slang. They are basically speaking street.
Yeah,
It's
probably so.
drill rap for religion.
So here we have. Let's zoom in on this.
What does it say? God, what? Like it's supposed.
God damn it! It won't zoom in on the picture. It just makes the text bigger. That doesn't help us very much.
Not at
God.
all.
Oh, it says, "God, what happens when we die?"
Okay.
And then that's the same picture we are. And then we have, "Are you there?" Something about, "Does our struggle? Do you ever regret your creations?"
Okay. All right. All right. Listen. I suspect this wasn't the art was done by an artist, but the actual framing and phrasing was done by 12-year-olds.
And you may be right. And our slam poet friend Alex Vellis, I suspect, might be behind much of that. Oh, here he is. Here's a quote from him right here. Speaking about the collaborative work, poet Alex Vellis said, This project at its core is about community, using your voice, and change. Language is the people who speak it, and graffiti is the language of the unheard. By temporarily graffitiing the inside of Canterbury Cathedral, we join a chorus of the forgotten, the lost, and the wondrous. People who wanted to make their mark, to say, I was here, and to have their etchings carry their voice through the centuries. Surely we have all wondered about the mysteries of the universe, the meaning of life, or in times of uncertainty, sought advice. Within a theological context, posing a question to God is viewed as a form of prayer, meditation, or contemplation. In return, receiving guidance and solace from a source believed to be all-knowing and compassionate. By reaching out to the divine with personal inquiries, individuals may find comfort, clarity, and direction amidst life's uncertainties. End quote. Why do you need to do that with fucking graffiti?
Or with God, for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, stuff that has been at the core of theistic religion for as long as theistic religion has existed, but you have chosen to a mode of expression that is specifically designed to shock the conscience and cause offense to normal people. And okay. I feel like they are skirting around that and pretending they don't know it.
Okay, let's same time, same year, same everything, but this happens in Thailand, and one of their venerable buildings, drug out in the street and shot. Right?
Oh yeah, you kidding me?
Happens in caned at least,
stoned to death. Oh yeah. I guess caning is more of a Singapore thing, but same principle.
Try this in Russia, see what happens. Or one of your Eastern Orthodox churches, see what happens.
Oh yeah, How well would this go down in Russia? Oh my God, you would be in Siberia, so before you could even blink, making big rocks into little rocks for the next 617 years.
Forever, you'll still be there when the world ends. You'll be one of the little rocks. Put this in any nation in Africa.
Oh yeah, specifically the nations whose Anglican churches just broke with the mother church because they can't take this shit anymore. Yeah, same result, same reaction.
Let's try this in one of, say, China's venerable buildings. What happens then?
Public struggle session, permanent prison sentence. Probably your family gets thrown in prison too, I would guess.
Right. Okay. So what you're telling me is that they didn't do this anywhere else because it wasn't permitted anywhere else, right?
Correct.
So why are you Anglicans supposed to permit it? What is it that makes you subject to this treatment as opposed to any other location in the world?
Yes. What makes you so uniquely susceptible to having all of your religious traditions trampled all over and your face just slapped over and over and over and over again? What yeah, that's a good question to ask the Anglicans, because really, are there any limits to how much you will allow your culture to be trampled on? Or do you just will you allow basically any act of degradation and humiliation as long as it enables you to not be called a racist, xenophobic bigot? Because I think you have to ask that question ultimately at some point.
True. But yes. The what's not being said here does more to bring the point home than every bit of their word salad soup that they've been drizzling into your freaking face. What's not being said here is, look what we can do. This is a power move. This is meant to exhibit to the entire world that you will bow before the ideology that is being oppressed upon you. Yeah. No one will be left safe. There is no place sacred. There are no safe spaces. There is no such thing as not agreeing with the party line, and you will fall in line.
Yes, this is the forces of irreligious, nihilistic globalism sending out the warning that we can come into anything you've got and do whatever we like to it. Even your most sacred, most venerable institutions and edifices, it doesn't matter. We do what we want around here, and we are vegan, queer, slam, poet, they, thems, and you are powerless to stop us. And it's interesting that this should happen at this particular point in history, like you said, because it almost has the feeling of the lady doth protest too much. It's almost like people who can see that the cultural wave has crested and things are not going to necessarily start going as well for their forces as they have in the last 5, 8, 10 years, and they're trying to reassure themselves. One almost gets that feeling.
I find it really strange, really strange. They see the tides turning. They see the tables spinning. They are witnessing the fact that with St. George's Cross is literally everywhere. They can't take them down fast enough. It's the movement is being organized and is happening, and it's happening in, just like in the day of Guy Fawkes. It's not happening in the Houses of Parliament. It's not happening in the public forums. It's happening in the freaking pubs and the speakeasies all over England. They're sitting
Yep.
around speaking quietly about this trash here and this one here. The question, where does love come from, implies that you don't know.
Exactly. And there are a few other translations here at the top of this. It's interesting that the cathedral published this sort of damage control piece on 3 days ago before the thing had even opened. It's almost like they knew everybody was going to hate it and they had preemptively sort of written this bit of damage control. But it says it features questions including, are you there? Why did you create hate when love is by far more powerful? Does everything have a soul? And I guess those are the only direct translations we get. And those are kind of stupid questions because aren't the answers all contained in basic Christian theology? I mean,
Yes.
I'm no more religious than you are, and I know the answers to those questions just from my passing knowledge of basic Christian theology. I mean, come on now, because ultimately it's just fucking vandalism.
If you were standing in that building and someone asked you that question, no other answer would occur to you. However, if you were anywhere else in the world and someone asked you, where does love come from? You might go into some discussion of chemistry or biology or, compatibility or any number of other ways. But standing in that building, that one
Yes.
is different.
And that's not the edifice in which you have a conversation like that along the utilitarian, sort of humanistic lines that you could have it on if you were in any non-ecclesiastical setting, which probably gets down to the point of why do this here, because it's really an act of intellectual domination just as much as it is fuck you and your religion.
Humiliation ritual.
Yeah.
Bar none. That is what this is. You will submit to the treatment.
You will submit.
You will
Absolutely.
agree. You cannot speak out against it because now even your God agrees with us.
You will like what we tell you to like, and you will like it.
And you will like it. Exactly. And I don't think it's going to go unnoticed, because it's not just a shot across the bow of Anglicans. It's not just a shot across the bow of English. It's not just a shot across the bow to general Western culture. This also goes directly to the heart of every other religious institution in the world.
Yes. And I think the people behind it may have not fully considered the extent to which even secular humanists will be outrageously offended by this.
Because
That might be their. Go ahead.
Here's the thing: a lot of people, a lot of atheists view different religions as being completely antithetical to each other. If one's right, then the other's wrong, and that's all there is to it. And they never consider the fact that while religious people in general are a type, the religions themselves, while individually massively important to the people involved, are less important than, pardon the moment, religiosity and the fuzzy wuzzies. If you take an Anglican and a Jewish individual and they go to lunch one afternoon, they may disagree on some points, but they both agree there is a God. They can eat
Yep.
their lunch in peace without having to fight each other because they at least have that part settled.
And they agree on
None
what
of these
God it
people,
is, and probably on they're probably aligned on 3/4 of the major theological matters.
none of these people, not one of these people that could sit there, a freaking, I'm drawing a blank, seek a freaking, any one of the 10,000 Muhammads out there could sit down with that Christian and have a conversation and disagree about God and eat their falafel and get on with their lives, right?
Yep.
It wouldn't be an issue. But any of these people who don't believe in God cannot have that conversation without spurging out. They cannot agree with anything the 90% of the freaking world can agree on. That at least there might at least be a higher power of some description. These people believe they are the higher power, and that's
Absolutely.
where they're going to run into a brick
Yeah.
wall. That's what's going to do it in, because the entire world can unite around the fact that religion is a necessity, a necessary commodity of humanity. Atheism is not.
And ultimately, that has always been the top line objective of socialism ever since it was invented, is to replace the God that people have faith in with a state and a group of people that they can transfer that faith to, because we will have more power if we make your God not exist. So we need to make your God not exist.
Well, it's not just that they want to make your God not exist. They want to supplant the power that your God expends over you in your own mind with the state. And with that, I think that is an excellent point to segue into the conversation on Red Sun.
Can
Because-
I first
Go ahead,
read
please.
out this poem? I want to read out this poem so bad, because you remember the slam poetry scene from 21 Jump Street, right?
Yeah.
That's so much what this reminds me of. And this is
Go
this
get it,
is
baby.
this is the dumb bastard they selected to graffitiize the interior of Canterbury Cathedral. This is a piece called Slam Poetry. I'm just kidding. It's a piece called Exodus. Alex Vellis, November of 2019. I got to put my shades back on for this.
You want to
All
go
right,
with the cool
man.
voice, Daddy-O?
I feel like I should be lighting a cigarette, but I don't have one handy. Okay, here goes.
Got you, baby.
We, heavy and sullen men, on bent legs that learned to hold up the weight of our fathers, but could never hold up our mothers in the way they deserved to be. We, throwbacks to our youths that grew up and down in cities with single street lamps, burned out bedroom windows that tell you at least there was warmth here once. You are worth less than worthless. That is what our birth certificates read. That is what we have been told for our whole lives. Worth less than worthless. We, Sisyphean modes, our backs burdened by our father's footsteps. Please don't let me turn into him. I say this to you over coffee. You tell me we all look the same. I say I have to leave. You understand why. I have traced myself back to Carthage, to Canaan, to Athens. I have traced myself back to Olympus, stood at the foot of a mountain, challenged the gods to a fist fight. Before I go, you tell me to let my old self die and become a new god. Match like my father, They would never answer me. In the small hours, where the night hangs the day and birds are a collection of off notes, where the workman dresses his bathroom in white foam and says, "Today is the last day I will do this," on repeat like clockwork, every single day. In the spent moments between tying shoelaces and wrapping fingers around steering wheels or clutching wallets that march down to bus stops to take stabs at photocopiers or sit in coffee shops or buy and measure rope in full bodied lengths. That is where we know loneliness and futility and a singular quiet death that cannot come soon enough. I see myself in his image, a martyr with nothing to live for, but less to make my death a worthwhile venture. It is here, in the 2 a.m. phone calls to the Samaritans, and the silent sobbing about being alone, in the violent scars that have my legs like track marks, that I realize I am nothing like him. Perhaps this is my downfall. We heavy and sullen men, building foundations out of our ribs, breaking down for not breaking down soon enough, wiring and rewiring and rewiring, and there is not enough time in the day. You are not enough, they say, and it sticks with you. Paper mache angles that arch and tear and fold and break and break and break, and you must act strong. Everyone is counting on you. You must act strong. There is a finality in strength, a fraught not used for hanging light fixtures or bodies. We can never unwind. We can never unwind. We can never unwind. And Atlas will hold the world as punishment until the world will pull him down. We see this as a crime. He is just pleased to still be here. This old dog's legs will give way, and we will wait till the stars fall. I am lost coordinates, and I can't see myself as anything more than a map. They say if you dig down far enough, there is treasure. I think I have been stripped away. The next great exodus will see me home, and for the first time in a long time, I might be happy. But happiness is a collection of memories, or you telling me you loved me, even when it was difficult to do so. I would live and die for you, even though you would never ask me to. I am about ready to go.
That is cool, Daddy-O. Oh my God, what unmitigated drivel. Jesus.
I mean, I know, God. Like, really, dude? That's supposed to be English poetry today. Are you fucking serious right now? Just nihilistic, self-pitying trash that belongs in a comedy movie.
Yes. 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 In fact, it would be lost in a comedy movie. That should be what's being said in the background while Frank Drebin is over here questioning the bartender or the waitress.
You're exactly right. And right. Somehow the goddamn Church of England and the British government read that twaddle and said, "We want this guy to vandalize Canterbury Cathedral for us." And
the use of the term vandalism, I was going to kind of speak out against it, but the more I sit here and talk it out and I think it out in my brain, the more of a humiliation ritual I believe it is, and vandalism is exactly that. So, yeah, vandalism.
And it would actually be much less of a humiliation if the people I showed this to, who assumed, not unreasonably, that vandals had broken into the cathedral in the night and vandalized the place, it would be better if that was true. It makes it so many orders of magnitude worse that it was done on purpose at the behest of the church and the government, just to advance the cause of nihilist globalist domination.
This is state-sponsored vandalism.
Absolutely.
That's different. This is very much, and it has the same flavor in my brain as, do you remember the Peace for Palestine movement that was going on, and people were running around in the streets in England, and there were hundreds of people protesting and whatnot?
Oh yeah, they still are. Have you seen an Ivy League commencement ceremony lately? They all look like fucking Hamas rallies.
So what I'm getting at is, they did that for 6 weeks, and the police protected them. The police made it possible, allowed this to happen, and permitted it and promoted it. Anyone who spoke out against it got a visit. Everybody's being mind watched and all of that stuff. And then a couple of weeks later, somebody put a St. George's cross up on something, and that entire thing got removed before there was even a picture of it. But people saw it, and they went and sprayed it on everything they wanted removed. And within hours, a trailer that had been parked in a location that the neighborhood has been trying to get rid of for 16 months painted St. George's cross on it, and the state shows up and gets it within 24 hours.
Absolutely. And that's, you mentioned before, about the difference between organic grassroots activism and things done at the behest of the state for the purposes that the government wishes to advance. And here we have the exact difference between the one and the other, because the thing with the St. George crosses and the Union Jacks, that is exactly what organic grassroots activism looks like. It's people getting together at the pub saying, we don't like this shit anymore. We don't like being treated as criminals for flying the flag of our country while we are inside our country. So let's be really obnoxious about it. We will all leave this pub with a pile of flags, and we will all go put them up all over the place, wherever we want to. And if they call us a bunch of racist xenophobes, then fuck them. And those are the guys who get arrested. And it is the terrorist sympathizers who are members of proscribed groups that are not supposed to be able to assemble in the United Kingdom, who get all of the rights and all the protections and all of the special treatments. And it is the lone Englishman waving the St. George cross who gets hauled off to jail. And what a perfect illustration of the whole thing.
Exactly. And this is, all right, so you didn't like our flags. Well, we don't like your religion. This is as far as England, UK, England specifically, this also sends a message to Ireland. It sends a message to Australia, to Canada, to Scotland, all of them. No place is safe.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you mentioned Ireland, because I think ultimately pretty soon this might be going to a really interesting place where, more so than has ever occurred before, you might have common cause being found between the Irish and the English, where
common English.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes,
but where they have a common adversary, because it's even worse that this is being done to the Irish, because the Irish never colonized anybody. They were never a hegemonic, foreign power beating down some local population. They were the local population that got beat down by the colonizer, but this shit is still happening to them anyway. And you know what else?
Oh, you're not done. Go ahead.
No, to the extent that there are still large caches of weapons in the British Isles that could actually be used to stage a meaningful rebellion against the forces of government-backed globalism, I guarantee you they still exist in Ireland, even if they don't in England. And that might be another area of common cause. I guarantee you the IRA still has some weapons caches laying around somewhere, and they are just waiting for the fuse to be lit to go and get them out and play some ball.
Right. And there's this weird thing about heritage and history and a family name and being part of fathers, right? Households that have fathers teach their sons things that the schools know nothing about.
Correct.
Fathers teach their sons to shear sheep, to dig wells, to maintain hedges, to keep a garden, to fix things in the house. Fathers also teach their children, little things like which wire goes where and how to make the timer work and exactly what color everything should be so that you don't make a mistake and blow your face off. That kind of stuff.
Right. And in all of that, the passing down of skills is how we pass down cultural memory. They are one and the same, and they are intertwined. And that is what kids lose when they don't have fathers in the home. It's a big part of what they lose when they don't have fathers in the home. Not just the youthful skills, but also the cultural memory, especially when you're going to a public school all day where your purple haired, nose ringed, neck tattooed teacher is pounding it into your head that you should be completely ashamed of your country and your native culture. And there is no counterpoint that you have when you get home that your father can tell you, no, that teacher's full of shit. Let's go learn how to shear a sheep, and I will set you straight on why the teacher is so wrong about everything. And
Right.
cultural counterpoint and counterbalance, and that's a large part of what the family, the existence of the family unit is supposed to prevent from being able to happen. And as the nuclear family has been degraded, and that's not an accident that the forces of globalism have sought very doggedly to degrade the institution of the nuclear family, it is in large part so that cultural memory cannot be passed on, and there is no counterpoint to the narratives that they seek to advance.
It's all of this, all of it. God, I can't do that. It's too general. No one would understand. You got to cut it up smaller so the children can eat it. So they can chew their food. This here, this right here. We're gonna pop that out, pop it back in. This here, this is a litmus. This is going to show who is and who is not in the strike, right? Who is and who is not of the party, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. You and this isn't going to stop here. This is just the loudest, most obvious method of humiliation on the West that they were able to perpetrate.
And it's just a shot across the bow.
And it's just the opening salvo. Now, there have been 20 years of this drivel being shoved down your throat, right? There has been 20 years of these secular, non-religious individuals telling you that they are going to visit the sins of your father unto you, but not unto them. Their sins are okay. Your sins have to be paid for with reparations and proper humiliation and all of that. But those people over there, their sins of the history of murder and domination and everything they did back in their home country is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing that they're going to use to perpetrate against you. They bring them here so that can happen here. They teach them to lecture you about how you are the descendant of the oppressor and you are culpable for his sins, but I am not, and I am not. Right. And so how many generations? Hold on, let me finish.
And ultimately, we shouldn't be afraid to use the term blood libel, because it is a blood libel. It absolutely is a blood libel. When you try to make people culpable for the perceived sins of their ancestors 300 or 400 or 500 years ago.
At this point, there is no man alive today in America who kept a slave. Not legally.
Nope.
At this point in time, there is no man alive today, woman, transgender, whatever you want, that was born in slavery legally. There is no individual alive today that you can point at and say, you did that, you should pay. Instead, they are trying to blood libel. They're trying to blood libel the entire culture, the entire concept of Western culture. And here's the part that really breaks my fucking balls, bro. You don't even really know who's doing it. It's not the Africans. It's not the Chinese. It's not the Russians. It's not the Syrians. It's not the freaking Taiwanese. It's not the Koreans. It certainly isn't North Korea. So who's doing it? What group of elected officials or state actors are actually perpetrating these things on the different nations involved? Anybody want to answer that?
Video on that the other day. It's exactly who you would expect. It's white liberal billionaires who are financing all of the degradation and all of the. They want to live in a borderless world, and they are the way they see that world as being achievable is by wholesale degradation of every society, national shame and self-loathing, and tearing down every institution, pulling down every statue. It is all part of the same effort whereby the most powerful people in the world and the richest people in the world seek to make themselves richer and more powerful. And yeah, for people like communist China, of course they're happy to come along for the ride because it serves their purposes too. We are their most formidable adversary, and we have allowed them to degrade us in every way that an enemy can be degraded over the course of the last 30 or 35 years, when they've been at war with us and we still haven't even got the memo that we were at war. We allow them to dump all this money into our universities, and then all of a sudden our Ivy League commencement ceremonies all look like Hamas rallies. You think that's an accident? Of course that's not an accident. Come on.
Exactly. And so what you end up with is the individual states' politicians, which have been purchased by the worldwide billionaires who are perpetrating this. They are bought, paid for. You elect them, and then the party of power machine, the deep state machine is what we would call it. In America, you'd say the deep state, but in other places, it's other things. But it's all motivated through money, through power, through the accumulation of power and money, and through the expenditure of that money as well. That being said,
go ahead.
That being said, there is no way to point at an individual or organization and say you are responsible for that, because they use half the people actually taking action are just useful idiots.
Yes. And there are absolutely no dividing lines and no guardrails on the larger effort, because just yesterday, the California Assembly passed a goddamn reparations bill. California, where no slavery or segregation ever existed, California that was fast-tracked into statehood so that anti-slavery states would have more voting power in the Congress. California, where blacks are 6% of the population, maybe at best, and many or most of those are the descendants of 20th century foreign immigrants and not the descendants of American freedmen. But we're still going to play the reparations game, even though there's even in areas where there is absolutely no conceivable reason, even by the pretenses of their own narrative, to be playing it.
Right now, in, is it Congo, Kenya? Where's the Christian murders taking place currently? I can't remember.
It's the DRC, Congo.
DRC, right. Okay. So right now in the Congo, we have something that, if it is not a genocide, it is about as close as you can get to it without being that.
And our news media is completely uninterested in it. Isn't that amazing?
Not a single word in the worldwide news streams. No one mentioned a thing. And if you want to know anything about that, you have to go to places like the Lotus Eaters. You got to watch Tim Pool. You got to check out I can't remember the other dude's name that I watch regular, but anyway, like I'm sure Matt Christensen will eventually say something about it.
But it's a good thing that we've had so much success in the last half decade to a decade, building our own parallel sort of news and informational ecosystem. Because can you imagine if we were still living in a world where everybody got their information from the mainstream fake news media? How completely fucked and ignorant we would be right now. There's not even any way of reckoning it. It would be disastrous.
You can tell by looking at the people who do.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Yep.
And if you try 100%. to have a conversation about anything in the news, any current events, anything, with someone who is mainstream media fed, it's always going to have that skew. You cannot really discuss information because they won't accept your sources. Oh, that's not ABC. That's not CNN. That's not a reliable source.
Yes, and that also extends to the way that they rig the game on Wikipedia, which is where a lot of people get their information about things. This fake news site is trusted. This fake news site is trusted. This fish wrap of a newspaper is trusted. Just because they are old brands that used to do news reporting, they are still regarded as trusted sources. And if you're not, then you are not to be trusted. And so that's all the horse shit information that goes into the article.
There's one more point about the Church of England over there that I want to bring up, and this goes worldwide. This matters in America and Canada and Australia, Ireland, you name it. If voting your representatives into Parliament or Congress does not result in the desired effects that you are voting for, does your vote actually count? If after the vote, the changes that you were looking for don't take place, does your vote count? And then that's the question. What happens when the people of England answer that question?
And the people in the UK have even more of a reason to be asking that question than we do over here, because just as we have, I mean, maybe not for quite as long, but for over a century, they have had basically two parties that have dominated the whole proceedings, the Tories and the Labour Party, just as we have Democrats and Republicans. But especially with respect to the mass migration thing, they switched from Labour to the Tories because the Tories said, we are going to stop the boats, we are going to shut down mass migration. They voted in the Tories, and the mass migration actually accelerated because both of your parties are on the same team as far as their commitment to the larger globalist agenda, just as the mainstreams of both of our parties here in this country are. Thank God we have a Donald Trump, and maybe Nigel Farage can, if the Muslims don't kill him, can be the same thing for the British, and I sure hope he is. But if we know anything for certain, it's that the Tories are dead. The Reform UK is now the only viable conservative party over in the UK. The Tories, last time I looked at the polls, they were polling in fourth place and in danger of falling into fifth. So the Tories are dead and gone after 350 years. That, I think, is assured.
Where does it go, though? I do not see a nonviolent outcome here. Well, okay, Europe, not Europe. I'm sorry. Let me do this. Let me work this out. England has a parliament. That parliament has the ability to call for referendums and votes and all kinds of other things. Brexit was brought to a vote because they thought they had public sentiment. They thought they could win that one. And so they sort of allowed that whole process to take place so that they could prove it to the people that didn't believe that they should be a part of the EU, that they should. And then they lost that vote. And I don't think they saw that coming. But one thing that Britain does and can do legally, according to their laws, is just have another vote. And they can vote they can cast votes until you vote the way they want you to.
Yeah. And as far as Brexit goes, a lot of the Tories really didn't, in their heart of hearts, actually support Brexit. They pretended to support it because they saw it as a good pathway to either gaining a seat in Parliament or keeping their seat in Parliament. But when it came down to actually doing the thing, they didn't have any more intention of doing the thing than the Labour Party did. And it took installing a prime minister, Boris Johnson. He's really hopeless and quite a woke, bleeding heart idiot on a lot of levels, but he actually did get the Brexit thing done, and that's what they put him in to do. He's been pretty hopeless on everything else, but the actual version of Brexit that they got is obviously non-ideal, and there are still a lot of vestiges of the EU that are clinging on to the HMS United Kingdom like so many barnacles on the hull. But they actually did manage to get that one thing done that the people wanted. And that's the point, like you say, of you can keep installing a man and a different man and a different man and a new man until you get the man that does the thing you actually voted for.
But that's not really the way the system's set up. To get back across the pond on this side, our system has been operated by dinosaurs for so long. Most
160
people
years
have no idea what younger politicians would accomplish. Have no clue what they would do. No idea. People like J.D. Vance, who's not a young man by any stretch of the imagination, but is a very young man in relation to Congress.
Oh,
I mean, the
yeah.
average age of Congress
What is he, 41, 42 now? Yeah, he's
right,
in the grand scheme of things as politicians go, he's quite the spring chicken, pardon me.
right. So the way it's set up over here, even if you vote those people out, even if, let's say, we come through the midterms, we go to the next election, and it's a wipe. It's a total wipe. Democrats get completely subsumed. House, Congress, presidency, it's all in the bag. Does it change anything in America?
Doubtful.
Doubtful. What happens is the money that was being funneled, the specifically government money that was being funded to 10,000 different charities and nonprofits and NGOs in other countries. And then some of that money was redoubling back directly into the United States and doing things like, I would assume, putting bricks on random freaking sidewalks and printing signs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that's a stretch.
And a lot of people make the mistake, and it's a fatal mistake, and it's an argument. It's a thing that I get into so many arguments about with so many people. They make the mistake of thinking that because Donald Trump is a Republican, that makes the Republican Party conservative and non-globalist. And if you're convincing yourself of that, you are setting yourself up for many more decades of disappointment, because they just are not, and they will never be. Conservatives being at the head of the Republican Party, it is the exception and not the rule. It is strictly an aberration. We've had, how many actual conservatives have been at the head of the Republican Party in my lifetime? I can think of 3: Nixon, Reagan, Trump. That is it. Everybody else is a globalist shitbag.
I'm not going to accept Trump as a conservative. I'm sorry. He may have some conservative values that are in line with the conservative.
Well, according to where the Overton window is right now, he is.
Okay, sure. Well, that's what I was fixing to say. Trump is a mid '90s centerline liberal.
Sure.
He's not anything remotely historically conservative.
And nobody ever would have accused him of being a conservative until the day that he announced his candidacy as a Republican.
Now, that being said, how much more degradation can a nation take? And what happens when they decide they're not going to take any more?
And that's the question that is staring us directly in the face on both sides of the Atlantic presently, isn't it? And really, ultimately, to drill down even more to the crux of the matter, when do the armed hostilities begin? When people have decided that they just can't take the shit anymore? Because I don't see any outcome where armed hostilities are not involved. As much as I would like to say I do, I don't think I do.
All right, I have to stop this wonderful discourse in exchange for something worse than what we've been discussing, because we are almost out of time. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Gabriel Torch. I have highlighted a couple of her videos in the past, mostly because of how much they horrify me. There was the human flesh robot. You remember that? The dog flesh robot. There were the brain organoids, and there were various other atrocities being perpetrated on human flesh. This one is the world's first AI designed viruses, a step towards AI generated life. Now, what this is her explaining that they have created brand new gene edited CRISPR technology viruses that actually permeate the cell wall and do all the things that life does.
If I'm not mistaken, that was a specific prediction that Stephen Hawking actually made, was that the first undeniable artificial form of life would be a virus.
Obviously. And after this finishes playing, I'm gonna play it straight through unbroken. Once it finishes playing, I'm going to tell you the good part of this technology because it's narrow but extremely amazing.
To making AI-generated life as researchers make the first AI-generated virus. That might sound slightly scary, but I'll explain. You might recognize these guys from high school biology. They're bacteriophages, and they're one of my research areas. I study evolution in phages. They modeled their AI generation around a phage that infects E. coli. Then they let the AI design something that could functionally impact E. coli. The AI came up with hundreds of different phages, 16 of which were actually effective.
Thank you, Kissy May. Do the thing. I'll press the button.
Put me on the spot again. Ask
Yeah,
me
that's the way it works.
ask me an open question, and so I can do the song and dance. I don't have anything
Yeah,
prepared to
sure.
say right off the top of my
No,
head right
just
now.
say-
I was
Just say thank you, Kissy May, for the $10.
thank you, Kissy May, for the $10 super chat. I sure do love you quite a lot.
Good job.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
I got my buttons mixed up there for a second. Yeah, okay.
Some of them used mechanisms not in the evolutionary line of that phage at all. So they're totally novel. Mechanisms that E. coli have to overcome the original phage are not effective on these AI-made ones. Now, this might sound like it could go down a dark direction, and yeah, that's possible too, but do understand bacteriophages are much simpler than ones that impact eukaryotes like us. Now, why are we excited for this? There's a problem with getting antibiotics to market, and there's some conditions which are incurable that you would preferably want to be curable. Bacteriophages has always been considered as a potential therapy for bacterial infections, but it's never been terribly effective. After all, bacteria are made to overcome their phages. If you could design one specifically for that bacteria, even more so one that it is very unlikely to overcome because it may overcome ones that it's familiar with, you could design something that could be created quickly that could also knock out infections. Of course, there's a whole lot that it's going to have to go through first. Not kidding, it does have to go through clinical trials, but it's another tool in our tool belt to fight something that mankind has been fighting for thousands of years. This could be the start of a whole new era in antibiotic treatments. Did you know?
No.
I always get a little bit creeped out when people refer to human beings as eukaryotes.
Sure, but no.
I mean, I know it's technically correct. It just kind of makes me cringe a little bit.
Back when that nice gentleman left his sandwich on the freaking refrigerator too long and discovered penicillin, I know it was an orange, but anyway, there was a vast amount of study in phages. Phages was a legitimate academic pursuit. It was sponsored by states, the worldwide. Everybody had a phage unit. It was part of the multi-pronged onslaught on disease that was being taken on by every major corporation and state operator on Earth.
Oh yeah, every university had a dedicated department within a matter of 5 minutes.
Well, that's the thing is like from the second they discovered, hey, there's these things that eat bacteria and viruses and shit. There was an expert in it almost immediately. This is a resurgence of that, but this is a resurgence of that on a diabolical level. Instead of going into nature and finding the things that we need in nature that already exist and are designed or appear to be designed specifically to do the things that we need them to do, they've said, screw that shit, we're just going to build it.
Yep.
I don't think that's going to work out.
Those are always famous last words. Let's just screw it. Let's just build it. We'll see what happens later.
Nightmarish.
Now that the very first treatment for syphilis was actually malaria, yes, they utilized another pathogen that caused a high fever in order to allow the body to knock out the syphilis. So having biological entities interact is not entirely new to medicine. In the situation we currently have, it takes a very long time for treatments to actually get to market. It's extraordinarily expensive and it's not very profitable once it gets there. It's not something that people are going to be using continuously for a long period. We need to come up with new mechanisms to get antibiotics to market, and using AI is one of them, not just for designing phages, but for designing antibiotics that can target resistant microbes. This is an area where AI really excels at, and I think it's an ethical and effective way to use it. There is a
The great thing about science is that every single world-changing medical advance that has ever come to pass was a complete accident discovered by somebody who was trying to do a completely different thing.
Within 8 months of the discovery of penicillin, every microphage department in Europe had been transferred into a biochem department studying the effects of penicillin on bugs.
Yep.
There
It
is
happened
there
that,
has,
it
since
happened
that
that
date,
quickly. Yep.
since that date, there has been no additional funding to speak of. There's a little bit. There's individuals who seek funding, but there's been no additional funding to speak of. I'm done.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here tonight on the Blast Radius. I thought we had a very stimulating, very worthwhile discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. I'm sure I speak for Mr. Sasquatch as much as myself when I say that. We hope you have just a fantastic day tomorrow and an edifying day after that, and a wondrous, wondrous rest of your week. We will convene back here next Sunday evening, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, just like we always do. Keep your powder dry. Until then, get off my lawn.